Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Louisville Literary Arts InKY reading series. I can't hardly talk. It must have been the storm from last night. I am Charlize Lewis. I'm the executive director, and we have some special readings tonight, and I'll get to that in just a minute. So quickly, just a little housekeeping. We are recording. Everyone's being recorded. So I want you to know that in advance. That's the right thing to do.
Oh, Jesus. There we go. Sorry.
We knew that was coming. We knew. You warned us. It's all good. We have dogs, cats, and babies sometimes in the background, and we understand it completely. So a couple quick things. If you would like to become a member of Louisville Literary Arts or donate, you can go to our website, and I will drop the link in the chat shortly. Also, you can join our mailing list, and that way you will get the monthly newsletter that comes out the first week of every month. Additionally, we will request that you follow us on social media. We post a lot of things, a lot of our activities and events and accolades and things of that nature. They go on social media a couple of times a week. We are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And you can find us at LOU Literary Arts on most of those platforms. Additionally, we are so excited about our Writer's Block Festival coming back. We have not done Writer's Block in 3 years. We are so excited. So save the date on your calendar, which is November 12th, 2022. And we are hosting it across the bridge at Ivy Tech Community College. So we are so super excited that we are going to have our big event for all of our authors and our readers in, what's it called, Kentuckiana? Okay, Kentuckiana. So tonight, I also want to let you know, if you go to our website, you will see we are hosting a joint workshop with Carnegie Writing Center. It's called Brave Writing with Claudia Love Meyer. And if you want to be a part of that, you can actually click on that link, and registration is through Eventbrite. The cost is about $35. We have some discounts for people who are members of LLA. Also, I would encourage you, if you want to become a member of LLA, we have 4 different membership levels. So again, our website has all of that information on there. So with now no further ado, we are going to introduce our first reader for the evening, and that is Avery Guest. Avery M. Guest, so you got to put that M in there, right? Has received a 2015 NEA Fellowship for Poetry and Grants from the Barbara Deming Memorial Fund and the Kentucky Foundation for Women. She is the grant program manager at the Kentucky Foundation for Women and a PhD student at University of South Dakota. Recent publications include poems in Diode. Did I say that right?
Diode.
Okay, gotcha. And Rogue Agent and Creative Nonfiction in Still, the Journal, Entropy, and the Manifestation. Her debut full-length poetry collection, The Truth Is, was published in April 2019 by Black Lawrence Press. Avery's website is averymguest.com, and I will drop that in the chat. So, Avery, take it away.
All right, thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me to do this. I'm going to read, to start, a poem from my book, and then I'm going to try something new and read an excerpt that was published in Still the Journal called Edges. And then if there's time, I'll read maybe another poem from the book. All right, gonna take a drink of water. This one is called Her Childhood Home. The flamingo feathers its nest with sawgrass and stones. The rabbit that visits each day at 4 is found dead next to the monkey's cage. The father's hand is far too fond of the daughter's breast. Her bedroom carpet the color of just shed blood. And the mother whacks the daughter 100 times each night with a brush, so her hair shines brighter than the Big Dipper in the April sky. The stars are always there, glaring down at her. During the day, she sees them each time she faints, and each time she turns the lights off in her bedroom, God's eyes bore through her and pin her to the bed, where she screams for help. She dreams of leaving. Even her turtle ran away. You'll see the connection why I chose this particular poem in just a couple minutes. All right, so I'm going to switch over to prose. And again, this is a work in progress. Still was kind enough to publish an excerpt of the larger piece that I'm working on, which is hopefully going to be maybe like 150 or so, maybe 100 to 150 pages of little short kind of little stories in short bursts. So here we go. So this is edges. Every map has edges, the places where one thing begins and another ends. The space in between the known and unknown, the places we can name and those we label, here be dragons. As early as third grade, I can remember drawing maps as part of my running away plans. They were never very detailed, and they never would have gotten me all that far from what I wanted to escape, home. Still, I worked on the maps with more attention than any assignment my teachers could have created. I draw my school first, then the forest to the east, a small wooded area that might have encompassed 1 square block. Then a couple more streets I didn't know the names of, and finally my initial destination, Red Road. Red Road was home to Zips Ice Cream, whose plastic Major League Baseball caps I collected. It seemed to me that if I could make it as far as Red Road, I could make it anywhere. Okay. At the start of 2016, I was 45 and standing on the edges of my life, unsure as to how I could continue. The path I'd found in my late 30s and early 40s, that of MFA and PhD programs, still stretched out before me. My writing was going well, but more graduate school was a challenge I wasn't sure I was up for. I still found myself wanting to leave my life. Edges were familiar and comforting. From them, I could see distinctions I missed while navigating the middle. Move away from the sharp demarcation of here and there, and I floundered. It had always been that way. The new psychiatrist I met with in South Dakota recommended I start Latuda to help manage my bipolar depression. Growing up in Miami, a fair-skinned strawberry blonde, I got many sunburns from days at the beach, pool, or lakes I spent most of my time at from spring until fall. No one used sunscreen in the 1970s. Tans were in. Most people who grew up in South Florida in the 70s and 80s still remember the copper-tone billboard at what was colloquially known as Spaghetti Junction, that space where the Palmetto Expressway, US Route 441, State Road 9, Florida's Turnpike, and I-95 all met. It was rumored that Jodie Foster was the model for the girl whose bikini bottom was being pulled down by a small black dog. The sign read, "Coppertone welcomes you to Miami." Some of my sunburns weren't too bad, but many ended with me blistered or peeling. No matter my age, I couldn't stop myself from picking at the edges of my skin. It became a game. The longer the strip I could pick, the better. I imagine what it would be like to live on the verge of nothingness. I imagine I would love it. I imagine I would hate it. While attending Miami Lakes Junior High School, I spent a lot of time standing at the tops of staircases in each corner of the building. I'd ask my teacher for a hall pass, usually with the excuse of needing to use the bathroom. Then, while everyone was in class and the hallways were empty of students, faculty, and administrators, I'd stand at the threshold of the top stair and will myself to jump. I never could make the leap. It is perhaps a falsehood that map makers would label the unknown parts of the world, "Here be dragons," though Renaissance, medieval, and ancient maps were peppered with sea creatures of various fierceness. According to my research, only 2 globes in existence have that designation. The most recent is the Hunt Lennox globe. It's an early 16th century engraved copper sphere dating to 1510. The globe is small, only about 5 meters in diameter, and belongs to the New York Library collection. The other globe is made from an ostrich egg, dated 1504, and is to date the oldest known globe to contain the New World. It too has a saying near the Southeast Asian coastline. What does it mean that no other surviving artifacts carry this warning in text? Not much, to me at least. The creatures that inhabit these maps are warning enough. Beware the unknown. Not remembering most of my childhood is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I've forgotten all sorts of good things that have happened. Times with friends, vacations, the days I'd spend with my Nana and Pop-Up on South Beach, the everydayness of being a child. On the other hand, I've unremembered what it felt like to have my mother beat me, or just what exactly my father would do when he came to my bed. I don't know what I'd do if someone came along with a way for me to access the memories, both good and bad. Would I choose to step in from memory's edges and see the breadth of my experience, or would I stay safely perched on the periphery that I've inhabited for years? I've had more than a few psychiatric diagnoses over the years. Post-traumatic stress disorder, major depression, anxiety disorder. For a short while, I was diagnosed as having borderline personality disorder. This was later changed to bipolar 2. Both are diagnoses of extremes, of sharp lines and edges of demarcation. Between getting my MFA in 2014 and beginning my PhD studies in 2015, I used my birth mother's house in Kentucky as a base while I traveled to various writing residencies and applied to graduate schools. I put all my belongings in storage, packed my car, and stayed on the move for a year. After talking with Kathy, my birth mother, one night about her mother's Mormon roots, I decided to do a little genealogical research on that side of the family. I managed to track my grandfather's family down to an island archipelago off the southern coast of Iceland called the Westman Islands. Of the 15 islands that make up the archipelago, only one, whose name means home island, is habitable. It is a tiny town situated on the edge of a small island country. Perhaps my affinity for edges is rooted in biology. In 1982, I was in 7th grade. I had just turned 12 and I decided to run away. I stole jewelry from my mother, packed a change of clothes, and left campus just after being dropped off by the daily carpool. I made it about half a mile before I tired of walking and decided to try my luck hitchhiking. I made this decision despite the fact that the previous year, Adam Walsh disappeared from the mall in Hollywood my mother and I frequented, despite the fact that his severed head was found 2 weeks later in a turnpike drainage ditch. I don't know if I was more afraid of being caught and taken home than I was of being beheaded. There's an article on Wikipedia titled "Extreme Points of Earth." In it, there are facts that any lover of edges would enjoy. For instance, only 3 people have ever traveled to the deepest reachable part of the Earth, Challenger Deep, which is over 35,000 feet below sea level in the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean. 2 people, Jacques Piccard and John Walsh, made it down in 1960, and in 2012, James Cameron of Titanic fame traveled there in his vessel, the Deep Sea Challenger. I don't know what drives people like Piccard, Walsh, and Cameron. Is it the thrill of going somewhere no one or very few have gone before? Is it purely scientific inquiry, or is it something more? a need perhaps to stand at the brink and stare, to see if something stares back. I thumbed down a man driving a pickup truck. He assumed I went to Dade County Christian, a private school nearby, and I didn't correct him. I told him I wasn't feeling well, my parents were working, and I just needed a lift home. He obliged. After a while, I realized this wasn't the best idea, and I had the man drop me off at a likely-looking suburban community. He did. I kept walking until I reached a construction site a few miles away from my school in Broward County. I bought a soda from a roach coach and got to talking with one of the workers. He must have realized I was running away because the next thing I know, I was confessing to an office worker in the construction manager's trailer. Someone dropped me off at my school and I got back in time for fourth period. I never told anyone, no one ever found out. For years after, I dreamt of running away, my plans ever more elaborate, but I never tried again. In April 1983, about 6 months after running away, I tried to kill myself. I was still 12. I overdosed on Quaaludes and some other pills I found in my mother's medicine cabinet and wrote down the reasons for doing so in a blue notebook I hid in my closet. I don't remember what I wrote. I woke up in the emergency room of the local hospital confused. I remember confessing to my father that I cursed. I told him about the existence of the blue notebook. When I got home that night, after a brief visit with a therapist, the notebook was gone. The only time my attempt was mentioned again was when I looked unhappy and my mother would ask why I didn't try to kill myself again. I was also blamed for the hospital bill. Beyond that, my attempt was disappeared. In March 2017, I started a course of treatments of electroconvulsive therapy, often referred to as ECT or shock therapy. I advocated for this treatment for myself when I was in the hospital because my depression was so bad, all I was doing was researching ways to successfully commit suicide. Although I was told it was possible that I'd have some memory issues as a result of the sessions, I did not realize just how much I would lose. It's impossible to find the edges of memory. I know, I've tried. Our knowledge of what has happened is amorphous, ever-changing. I do know that I lost approximately 6 months to the treatments that saved my life. I've mourned their passing. I've been frustrated that I can't remember a conference I attended, holidays with my family, about 2 semesters of school. But I would do it again and again, as many times as needed to keep me from slipping over the edge into death. One of my favorite movies is 1990's Postcard from the Edge, starring Meryl Streep, Shirley MacLaine, and Dennis Quaid in a production that translates Carrie Fisher's novel to the big screen. The novel is a semi-autobiographical look at Fisher's struggles with drug addiction and her relationship with her mother. Later, Carrie Fisher would write about being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, as well as the regular ECT treatments that saved her life in her memoir, Shockaholic. In it, she wrote, I found that the truly negative side effect of ECT is that it's hungry. The only thing it has a taste for is memory. I didn't know about Fisher's ECT treatments when I received mine. I wish I had. I felt like I was taking a trip to the edge by myself, something I'm used to doing, but it would have been nice to have Fisher's words with me when I went. When I lived in San Francisco, my favorite beach to go to with friends was called Land's End. The hike down and back up the cliffs is intense, but always worth the trip. Land's End was a beach on the edge of a city known for its edginess. In Montauk, where I spent my first writing residency at the Albee Foundation, I went to the beach every morning to watch the sunrise. Before I left, I learned that another name of the town was The End. I grew up going to the beach often in Miami. I always look forward to being near the ocean wherever I am in the world. It's my favorite place to be. That place where ocean meets land, where the pull of the tide is the strongest. Okay, I'm gonna take a quick drink. And I'm gonna read one more poem. let's go with this one. Okay. This is very Florida-y, so it's fun. The Alligator Girl becomes. Nights, the girl slips into the alligator skin. She relishes the weight of husk, how her arms and legs fit, how the surface welcomes her, wraps her frame in its reptilian hug. She remembers countless field trips to the Everglades, her classmates shrieking as the gator's mouth was held shut by the guide's hand, proof of man's superiority. She felt bad for the creature, on display against its will for kids who would kill it rather than listen to the soul song of its fellows. The gator's cold eyes always drew her in. Her mother says the girl's skin is too thin. A gator's hide is thick, impervious. She still hasn't figured out how to work the eyelids. She'll need them to swim with her eyes open for predators, for prey. Nights, she dreams of flight. She understands she is becoming. She's tapped into the genetic memory of that common ancestor that kept her kind close to the earth, but saw her kin take to the skies. They learned a different kind of freedom. She grows adept at flicking her tail, clacking her jaws, the high walk and the low crawl. Practices her log imitation in the bathtub, snout above water, breathing in, out. The night she leaves for good, she tries on the prom dress her mother bought after making her lose 15 pounds in time to get a date. She smooths the dress down, enjoys the slide of satin over scale, each bump still visible through the fabric. Her mother would tell her to hide the lumps with Spanx. The girl twirls for the bathroom mirror one last time, then shreds the dress with her claws. She won't need it where she's going, back to the swamps. She lowers first her head, then her front and back legs into the toilet bowl, her diving form a perfect 10, and with a snap of her tail, she flushes herself away, leaves not a trace. Thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome. I do have a question though.
Yeah.
And it's a question that I ask people, and they answer it very differently. When you write about your own story, your own life, how do people that are obviously in the book or mentioned in the book, how do they respond?
So my adoptive family, who I'm writing about most often, don't know about this stuff. So I write under not my legal name, and I keep it separate from them for a few reasons. I mean, I don't want to hurt them, even though, and, I mean, I still have a relationship with some of them. So I want to keep that. There's still a part of me, of course, that loves them. They're my family. And so it's complicated, but yeah.
Yeah, and I have a lot of people who have asked me before, my advice on writing, and a lot of people, it's personal to them, but then a lot of people will sue. And then we have to be honest about that as writers. So sometimes they'll ask me how to do it. And I say, I had to tell someone before, you might have to wait.
Yeah.
You might have to wait. But sometimes it's very sensitive. So you have to approach it with care. Yeah, but I appreciated the transparency of your work.
Thank you.
Irv's clapping.
Thank you, Irv.
Okay, so now for our next reader for the evening is Adam Shaw. Adam Shaw lives with his wife and daughter in Louisville, Kentucky, and holds an MFA in fiction writing from Concordia University, St. Paul. He is the author of the novel, The Jackals, and his short fiction and essays on relationships, pop culture, and nostalgia have appeared in Taco Bell Quarterly, Across the Margins, Sledgehammer Lit, and elsewhere. He can be found online at theshawspot.com, and I will put the link in the chat. And he has some family members on here tonight too.
Yeah, just a few.
Are you sure this is not the Shaw Spot tonight?
Maybe. But thanks so much for for having me. I'm super thrilled to be here. Haven't been to a couple of these as a viewer, I guess. It's awesome to be here reading, especially with Avery. That was phenomenal. I'm going to be reading. I'm going to start at least with a chapter from my novel, The Jackals. It's about a 29-year-old man named Jack Dotson, who finds out that his sort of childhood best friend that he sort of betrayed passed away unexpectedly. And the book sort of follows Jack as he makes his trip back to his hometown to sort of come to terms with what happened to his best friend's life and try to, I guess, mend some bridges that he burned when he left town. So I'll start with that. Depending on how time is going, I have a new piece that I might try to squeeze in as well. We'll see. So I'm gonna read from I'm gonna start a couple chapters in. In this chapter, it's early in the book, so third chapter, and it's about 18 hours or so after Jack, the protagonist, has discovered that his best friend died, or childhood best friend died. And he knows that it happened, but he doesn't know necessarily what happened. He's sort of in the grief that sort of falls in that in between knowing and knowing more, I guess, if that makes sense. But I'll stop talking and go ahead and start reading. I've been at the house for 2 hours when Lauren walks in, drops her bag on the table, kisses me on the forehead, and walks to the kitchen. My boss is such a dick, she says. He's never going to let me stop writing about the special election. I rub my eyes, realizing I've been staring at a picture of us on the mantle for half an hour. I think they all are, I tell her. It's a boss prerequisite or something. Lauren works for The Gambit, a left-wing alternative paper. After finishing her degree at the top of her class and being unemployed for 6 months following, it ended up being her best option. Despite her grades and her dad's connections, the market for new journalists didn't exist, and she took what she could get. She's looked for something new from time to time, even interviewed at a paper in New York and another in Denver, but nothing stuck. It's different with Eric, though. She grabs a LaCroix, then cracks it open and arches her head back to take a sip. She sets the can on the counter without making a sound and looks past me, heading back toward her bag. He's just so condescending. The man can't get his head out of his ass for 1 minute to think about anyone other than himself. My phone, sitting next to her bag, starts to hum. Who's that? I ask. Lauren stops. Brian. I need to answer it, I tell her. It's important. She steps closer to my phone. So is this. We're trying to be better about supporting each other through these sorts of things, remember? We agreed no phones when we're talking. I stare at it, torn between Lauren and Mark, uncertain of myself and the situation and everything that's happened over the course of the last 18 hours or so. The feelings bubble up, making my stomach twist and my palms sweat until I can't handle it anymore. Mark's dead, I tell her, jumping off the couch and reaching past her to grab my phone. Her eyes widen before she bites her lower lip in a way that reminds me that she probably can't remember who Mark is. Hello? Hey, dude, Brian says. Do you know what happened? Brian coughs. I got a call from Harry last night. I talked to some friends from the ER up there, and he apparently got hit by a truck while biking home from downtown. It pretty much crushed him. Dude didn't stand a chance. Brian's an ER doc, so he doesn't think twice about people getting killed. He clamshells chests open, forces tubes down people's throats, and does all sorts of procedures that make dealing with death effortless. Why was he biking home? I guess he lost his car when he lost his job. He had Kings, I say. Mark lived for that place. It had been in his family since 1932, and he'd given up his shot at college after his dad told him he'd be taking it over. Mark wasn't crazy about it, but he was the sort of guy who did what your dad said because he said it, and he never looked back. No, Brian says. His dad fired him a few months back for drinking on the job. I close my eyes, trying to picture an unemployed Mark with a drinking problem. Mark never drank. He'd go to parties with us in college, but he wouldn't touch the alcohol. Said it would get in the way of school or work or whatever else he had going on in his life at the time. He had the keys to King's Rose and Custard, a Lafayette staple that, even though it wasn't a sexy job, was about as secure as it gets back home. Only, as it turns out, he ended up with none of it after all. When I open my eyes, Lauren stepped closer as if she wants to do something but has no idea what. You okay? Brian asks. I'd almost forgotten I was on the phone. Yeah, I say, even though I'm not. I'm fine. Is there anything I can do? Not really, he says. Not that I know of, at least. I'm gonna run though. I told mom and dad I'd update them too. Later, dude. I throw my phone onto a couch cushion. Lauren sits next to me. I'm sorry. The way she says this, like she forgot to take out the trash or buy dog food, makes me want to sink into the couch and never get up. Mark's dead, I say again. I know she knows this, but I don't have any other words. I'd hoped that Brian would tell me it was all a big joke, that Mark's alive and I could go home and catch up with him and say sorry for screwing him over all those years ago, but it's not. You went to school with him, right? Yeah. What happened? Pretty much crushed by a truck, I ask, still trying to make sense of it. Shit, she says. I'm so sorry, hon. I can't imagine. She comes over and rubs my shoulder. Do you want to grab dinner or something? I haven't eaten all day, but the thought of food makes me want to yak. All I can think about is that I should have gone home sooner. Should have said something when I ran into him at Walmart or given him a call. I scramble for a solution, something I can do here and now to make things right, but I've got nothing. He's just gone. Sure, she says. Your pick. Truth be told, I'm fine with drinking anywhere. Hell, if the Burger King down the road serves booze, I'd probably drink there. But we settle on Mulligan's, a dive in town that's far from perfect, but appropriately dark and littered with the heads of animals I can only assume the owner shot and killed. When we walk in, they stare back at me, a bear's head, a deer or two, and even a raccoon, and I half wonder if they're hanging out with Mark wherever Mark is, as if he's just sitting up in heaven or down in hell, chilling with dead animals from a shit bar in Louisville. Lauren and I have been hanging at Mulligan since we bought our house over a year ago. When we first moved, it was the only place where we could afford a drink. PBRs run $2, a shot of whiskey about the same, and the mixed drinks, while a little pricier, are boozy enough to be worth it. When we sit down at our table, Reuben, the resident cat, hops onto Lauren's side and nuzzles his head against her arm. 2 shots, she says, smiling at the bartender. Your pick. He brings them over quickly, as guys often do for Lauren, and she slides one my way. For Mark, she asks, is that appropriate? It's hard to think past him getting fired for drinking on the job and how, if I'd gotten my shit together a little sooner, I might have been able to get home and help out. Assuming it would have made a difference, that is. I guess. Okay, she says, raising her glass. For Mark. We clink glasses and knock back our drinks, an action that inspires the bartender to bring another round. 3 or 4 later, Lauren and I are sitting sideways in our booth, backs against the wall, twiddling each other's thumbs across the table while we watch tennis on a 13-inch TV on the bar. How did you and Mark meet again? You know, besides school. 7th grade, I tell her. She nods, as if the story's coming back to her. Kurt Klosterman was picking on me while I was reading the comic, and Mark stood up for me, knocked the kid out. He tried to play hero and disappear, but I didn't let him. And why'd you guys stop talking? Because I slept with Beth, Mark's girlfriend. I can't tell Lauren that, though. I didn't mean to keep it from her, but in the years we've been together, I've never had a reason to bring it up. Now it seems too late to. The band, I tell her. We didn't see eye to eye on it. She smiles. I always forget that my boyfriend used to be a rock star. This isn't entirely the truth. In high school, Mark and I teamed up with my brother, Brian, and our friend Kenny to start the Jackals. We were pretty popular before I left. We played most every spot around town and even booked some of Lafayette's little festivals. For some reason, probably because she's never seen how small Lafayette is, Lauren's always been impressed with this. Besides the promotion that it never was, it's one of the things she's probably most proud of. I start to say something but stop when somebody steps up to our table. He's a tall guy and he's wearing a polo that hugs his arms and chest in a way that makes him look like he stepped out of an American Eagle ad. His blonde hair practically shines in the dark bar and is perfectly combed up and over to one side in a way that highlights his tan skin and square face. Lauren, he says. When he smiles, I picture his teeth sparkling. Jeff, she says, letting go of my hand and scooting herself up in her seat. What are you doing here? He hikes his thumb over his shoulder, pointing to a table of equally muscled men across the bar. Grabbing a beer with some work friends. You? She blinks a couple times, then wipes her hair from her face. Grabbing a drink with my boyfriend, she says. This is Jack Dotson. Jeff laughs, then scoops my hand up from the table and shakes it. Like the guy from Titanic. Dotson, I say, with a T. He laughs again, then shrugs and looks toward Lauren, who lets out a little laugh too. Close enough, he says. Anyway, Just wanted to say hi. You running this week? She nods, a small brisk thing. Yeah, she says. I think so. Great, he says, taking a step back. I won't keep you then. Have a good one. A nice meeting you, Titanic, he adds. When he's gone, I turn toward Lauren. Who's that? Jeff, she says. I've told you about him. He organizes my run club, remember? The way she says this, like it's my job to keep track of her career in clubs and volunteer gigs, makes me feel like I don't try, like I need to memorize her planner, keep an address book of everyone she's talked about, do something. Kind of like how I didn't try with Mark, didn't try to go home, make amends, apologize. She'd say that this is me projecting my expectations of someone else onto our relationship, and she's probably right. There's just a nagging feeling that I should have done something more for Mark, and I can't shake the disappointment. You ready to go? Lauren knocks back the last of a shot and then sets it on the table. Yeah. On the walk back, Lauren slips her arm through mine and rests her head on my shoulder. Moonlight shining down on us, it's hard not to think of when we first moved into our place. Penniless, just two kids in an empty house with no idea what to do. It took us months to save up enough money to furnish the place well enough for a housewarming party. By the time we did, most people didn't bring a gift. I probably should have invited Mark to that party. You could have told me earlier today, Lauren says. I must have sucked holding that in. I look away. I tried to tell you last night, but you were asleep. You were gone by the time I woke up. Sorry, she says. It's just been crazy lately. I kiss the top of her head and she buries it into my shoulder. I know. That's why I didn't call. And it's not really the sort of thing you put in a text. Didn't Brian text you? Yeah, I say, snorting a laugh. But Brian's a dick. When we open our front door, we're greeted by the familiar slap of our basset hound Jabba's tail against his crate, groaning as he waits to get out. Lauren sets her bag on the table. It's your turn. I let him out earlier. Yeah, she adds, but I let him out before we left. I rest against the wall, so I get all the shitty ones. Lauren shrugs, then leans forward and kisses me on the nose. I guess you do. I'll let him out in the morning. When I open the crate, Jabba barrels through the house, stopping only to wag his tail at the back door until I open it. When I do, he explodes out and into the darkness, leaving me to stare at the porch steps. Looking at the top one, I think back to letting him out last night, sitting on that top step and reading Brian's text. As Jabba makes his way across the yard, I wish I could travel back in time and avoid having learned about all of this. If it were a sci-fi movie, I'd make the trip and steal my phone from future me, only to bring it back to the present where it can't do any harm and Mark is still alive. It wouldn't have worked that way, though. Brian would have found me by calling Lauren or emailing me or calling my office, and I'd be in some other version of the same shitstorm. Excuse me. It feels nice to think about a world where I could have done something, though. At least that way, too, I could have gotten a full night of sleep. Jabba trots up the stairs, wagging his tail behind him as he goes, and sniffs my toes before hopping through the open doorway and running to Lauren. When I walk inside, she's lying in bed in a 90s era Green Day sweatshirt and a pair of old pajama pants. Glasses on, hair falling over her shoulders, she looks every bit as captivating as she did the night we met at Fitzgerald's. Lauren's the kind of beautiful you get in fights for, and the thought of this makes it near impossible to put aside the inadequacy I felt since long before she came around. You okay? I shake myself into reality. Yeah, just thinking. You look sad. I nod, frustrated at the obvious, but appreciative of the effort. I am, I tell her. It just sucks. You think you have a chance to apologize to someone, to make it right with them, and it just doesn't work out always. She pats on the bed. Get some sleep. I lie in bed and pull the comforter over myself, an invitation that sends Lauren to my side, running her fingers up and down my abdomen in a way that makes me want to kiss her. Before I can, though, my eyelids fall heavy against the light above our bed, and I'm out. So that is that. The other piece I'm going to read is a short essay I have coming out in an anthology in a couple months. It's a themed anthology. So all the pieces are about working at fast food places or like in service. And that's coming out through a site called The Daily Drunk. They publish a lot of like pop culture essays and fiction and that sort of thing. But this is a short essay that I have coming out in that called 3 Definitions of a Flavor. And it's about my time serving frozen custard in college. So, and it's on my phone, so sorry. 3 definitions of a flavor. 1, a mild blueberry. I'm standing next to a cash register behind a window with an opening I have to hunker into to hear an order. It's my first day as a counterwaiter at the local frozen custard joint, and I'm convinced I'll become hunchbacked if I stay here for the remainder of the summer. On the other side of the window stands an old woman, silver blue hair curls. Her spine arches her toward the window and over the counter, and my first thought is to ask her if she's an alumnus. I'm here because Becky from my sixth period photo class saw my name on the application, heard in the rumblings of the lunchroom and in the hallway that I needed a job to get off probation, and put in a good word. To watch that go down the drain at the expense of a quip, watch it melt away, if you will, seems in poor taste given the circumstances. Blue curls croaks, but the grind of the shake mixer obliterates her words before they hit my ear. What was that? I ask. Blue moon, she says. Her eyes widen and she slaps her hand on the counter with each syllable as if her order is some sort of tribal chant. What is it? I turn to Becky, whose training plan has consisted of reading the latest issue of Cosmopolitan until a question arises. It's a mild blueberry, she says. It's a mild blueberry, I repeat. I'll take one of those, Blue Curl says. She sets her handbag on the counter, a mauve satin with gold finishes that I want to reach out and touch. She pulls out 5 quarters, stacks them so that the faces all point in my direction, and slides them across the counter. I hand her the cone Becky has prepared and set next to the register, a shimmering Crayola blue that looks nothing like the purplish splatter of blueberries, and she wraps her fingers around it as if she fears breaking it. I punch the order on the register as she walks away. $2.25, it says. I sigh, toss the quarters into the change bin, and remind myself to add a buck once Becky takes her next break. 2, a blue vanilla. Customers at my frozen custard joint can order from one of 3 windows. 2 in the middle, placed strategically by the soda fountain and within arm's reach of the custard machine, and 1 at the far end, tucked in between napkin boxes and tins of sundae toppings. Inside, there are 2 marks of respect. 1, being asked to work during the Colt World Series, a week-long amateur baseball tournament that takes place across the street each summer. 2, being asked to work the far window, the lonely one. The former of these is due to the never-ending line of high schoolers and over-anxious, hyper-aggressive baseball parents, folks with dry-fit polos soaked at the neckline from yelling at their kids' game. The latter is due to the isolation, the lack of support from the custard dippers and the freezers, or the camaraderie of an adjoining window. Excuse me. I've worked here for 4 years now, and for the last 3, both duties have been mine. I'm the medalist Chewbacca at the end of A New Hope, one who does the work because it needs to be done. My motions are an exercise in restraint, purpose, my forearms aware of the weight of an appropriate amount of ice in a medium root beer, my elbow conditioned to bend just far enough to skim the top of the custard to dip a perfect sphere. I can hold 4 cones in one hand on a given day, 5 on a good one. I'm Reggie Miller shooting a 3, Peyton Manning leading a 4th quarter comeback, the Captain Clutch of the frozen dessert industry. I've saved answers to anticipated questions as preparing for an interview, tucked my responses into the corners of my mind as if packing to camp or be dropped on an island. Do you have blizzards? No. Do you have something like blizzards? They're called chunky shakes. Do you offer samples? No. Okay, so what does Blue Moon taste like? A blue vanilla. A blue vanilla. I can't confirm that this is true, but I can confirm that it isn't the mild blueberry I've been ordered to describe it as. I've spent post-closing hours tasting it, allowing myself samples to pinpoint the way the flavors move across my tongue. There's no tartness, no hint of juice, just the balminess of a marshmallow, maybe a hint of caramel. To call it a mild blueberry is to risk one of the throng cutting back to the front, demanding a refund while stuffing the half-licked cone back in through the window. There's no time for that during Colt World Series. To risk it would upend order, send ripples of self-righteousness back through the lines, grumblings of injustice and impatience. Maintaining the customer's composure is worth many things, a small defiance the least of my concerns. Thus, a blue vanilla it is. 3, blue. It's 4 months after I finished my undergraduate degree and I've moved to the day shift in the drive-through. There's no one else to do it. My coworkers have left town to return to college, others still in high school. It's isolation without the thrill of the far window, momentary parades of cars punctuated by blocks of nothingness, time spent wiping and re-wiping the counter, topping off half-full sleeves of lids and bowls, staring at the window at the duck that's taken up residence in the bushes next door. The customers seldom have questions, just demands. They creep up in their SUVs, windows down upon arrival. They tell me they need a diet vanilla Coke, extra vanilla, low ice. Before the lunch rush, I line up a train of them, styrofoam cups with varying amounts of ice, arrange them in a line from least to most. I bide my time with made up tasks to get me through the monotony until I can step outside for my break, hang my hat on the rack and shuffle to my car, check if I've gotten a reply to the resumes I've sent out. A message in my inbox gives me a momentary high until I read about how much they appreciated my application, how thoroughly they looked it over before deciding they're heading in another direction. I'm shuffling back through the drive-thru after one of these breaks. I have 5 more minutes, but the nearby hospitals are between shifts. Their employees' cars decorated in stickers saying things like, "This hero wears scrubs," or "Be nice to me, I might be your nurse one day." I picture my own car, try to place career-minded stickers on its bumper, but they're fuzzy things, unfocused, like Spider-Man realizing he doesn't need glasses anymore. I knock on the counter to alert my boss of my return, and he nods, steps out between cars. A Chrysler Pacifica hums up to me, window down, arm dangling outside the door like a dead snake. It comes to a stop in front of me, and the driver grabs the gear shift and slides it forward into park. "I need a vanilla root beer," she says, and I consider what it means to need a root beer. I picture it coursing through veins, the carbonation tickling muscles and organs into movement. I picture wells of it, buckets drawn up from the earth and handed to parched soldiers in war, families fleeing from their homes across the desert. I picture, she snaps twice. "Excuse me, what?" "The Blue Moon," she says. "What is it?" I glance at the register, punch the buttons for her drink. Next to it is a notepad that's been placed over my resume, a marked up copy I brought in to work on between cars. The notepad's lines are decorated in a handwritten list of flavors prepared by my boss: vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, mint chip, cinnamon. All flavors without question, their identities inherent in their names as if they're Madonna or Cher or Prince or any number of one-name celebrities. Blue Moon sits last, an afterthought to the other flavors, backup dancer, or maybe the forgettable one in NSYNC, the one who went on to do reality TV. "Blue," I tell her. "It tastes like blue." She raises an eyebrow. "Blue?" "Blue." "Are you shitting me?" I shake my head, exhale. "It tastes like blue." She scoffs, rolls her eyes. "Little shit," she says. She grabs the gear shift in a fist, rips it into drive, and pulls away. I look out the window at the line of cars wrapped around the building, exhaust fluttering out of their tail ends and dissipating into the emptiness above them. They grumble to life at the sudden departure, and I sigh and wait for the next one to pull up. Thank you. That was the last piece I had.
Oh, I was waiting for one more. That's great. It was great work. I was thinking about root beer. It is my absolute favorite drink.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm allergic to soda. Isn't that awful?
Oh.
I know.
That is sad.
It is sad. It's very sad, actually.
Yeah. Oh, I love soda.
Does anybody have any feedback for Adam? I see that was great. That is me with cats from Avery. Irv, you got something?
I really liked the way the writing flowed. It was like you were right there. Very, very good, Adam. I can understand why you have your MFA, and I'm interested in reading the Jackals. It's very good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thought it was great dialogue in your work as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
I really just enjoyed the humor of it all. That was just delightful.
Thanks.
I was
Thanks.
really glad that you came second in the reading because it's a much better way to end.
Well, you get different kinds of reading on here, and I thought yours was wonderful. That you could even write about all of that stuff. It's just unbelievable. I admire you a lot.
Thanks. Lots of therapy.
I don't care how you got there, and I certainly understand why lots of therapy. But yeah, I liked it a lot.
Thanks. Adam, I tried to get the name of the anthology and I lost it.
Oh, the anthology it's coming out through a site called The Daily Drunk. And I think the anthology is being called Hi, How Are You Doing Today? Or Hi, How Are You Today? But if you follow The Daily Drunk on social media, they'll post about it when it's out.
All right, I'd like to thank you both again for joining. And I want everyone to know that we have on the third Thursday of the month. Is it a Thursday, Irv, the writers meetup? Or is it Wednesday?
Wednesday, it'll be next Wednesday.
So we have the writers meetup, and Irv is the facilitator of that. And anyone who has written some pieces and they want feedback on their pieces are welcome to join. It is free. And there's a group of people that are fairly consistent on there that, along with Irv, he is very faithful to showing up every single time, whether there's 2 or 3 writers or 10 writers. We are hoping to get our events back in person really, really soon. So please, please join our mailing list so that you can know. And Adam, I saw you on our event last month. Were you on our event?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were rolling out all of the information for all the new things we're doing this year. And again, we are excited about Writer's Block returning after 3 years. The last 2 years have been very unpredictable. Very. So we are definitely looking forward to that. So again, thank everyone for coming out this evening. Again, go to our website, www.louisvilleliteraryarts.org, and look at all of our information that's on there. Become a member, donate, whatever you want to do. And again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.